गवर्नमेंट और आम आदमी के बीच में एक पूरा चैनल होता है, कंसल्टेंट्स का, एक्सपर्ट्स का, अर्बन प्लानर्स का, आर्किटेक्ट्स का, रोड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंजीनियर्स का, जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सेक्टर को शेप अप करते हैं। हम उन्हीं एक्सपर्ट्स को आपके सामने ला रहे सीधा बात करने के लिए हमारे द बिजनेस एंड बियॉन्ड पॉडकास्ट के थ्रू। ये सिर्फ एक पॉडकास्ट नहीं है, ये इंडिया का सबसे पहला इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर रिलेटेड पॉडकास्ट है। आप भी अगर इस इंडस्ट्री की सच्चाई के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं और इंडस्ट्री से जुड़ना चाहते हैं तो प्लीज़ हमारी चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए। So is there any particular solution?
Yeah, see, every building or
What factor do you think is mostly ignored or is mostly neglected by urban planners?
if it's designed well, put it in ideal, like what is a good practice?
Project has been designed by another urban developer. I'm not happy with this point of view.
Yeah, I won't point out any particular project, but
But there are certain kind of quality control process you are saying that.
we have set standards.
So we are actually as Indians are very fascinated by the European countries and America.
Yeah, we borrow a lot of things, this flashy thing as a country we like because we travel around the Europe.
So you are saying this is, procedure of designing a green building or a green belt?
No, green building is a different aspect.
Cost driven or just a certificate driven?
They are both.
Who really decides a city's future? Planner, politicians or prophets?
Politicians for now.
Are modern townships solving the problems or just hiding them behind the gates?
Or they are hiding behind the gate.
Once upon a time, the river flowing through Ahmedabad was not a pride of the city. It was neglected, chaotic, too much disconnected from the city life. But today, the Sabarmati riverfront, standing tall, is the strong example of how cities can reinvent itself. But this kind of invention, this kind of transformation doesn't come overnight or doesn't come by chance. It required lots of planning and vision. So today we have one visionary with us who has the huge 2 decades of work experience into urban planning. We have Mr. Niki Shah with us, who is the director of HCP Designs and has huge vision about the urban development and planning. One of the very important project which he has developed is Central Vista, our own Delhi Parliament House. We welcome you, Mr. Niki Shah, to our podcast,
Thank you.
episode 3. So first we would like to know about your experience into urban planning into 2 decades.
I'm an urban designer and planning and landscape is part of it, so it's all integrated. So I have been involved into the lots of riverfront transformation projects, including the Sabarmati riverfront and other cities also. So the project in Pune and Surat and many other cities. Those projects are planning, urban design, landscape, transportation, all of them are overlaps. Also master plans like Central Vista master plan, for example, or the Gift City master plan, education campuses master plan. So all sorts of that master planning experiences, and then improving the city infrastructure in terms of the streets and the wherever we have flyovers, but then design them well, gardens and the lake rejuvenation projects. So this is a range where we work. There are dedicated projects which are unique to our country. For example, Mumbai Port, old port, which was now shifted many years ago, but the land is vacant in the heart of the city. And how do you imagine that land as a city? So master planning for that kind of projects, and we design new cities also. So I have a long-standing experience working in Bhutan, where we are designing a new city for their smaller towns, and it is under construction. So that's another one. So
Okay.
it's a wide range of experience that way.
I would like to ask you, when it's a development of such huge kind of community projects, what are the challenges you first face in the planning stage?
No, aligning the vision. When somebody tells you, because we are the practitioners, we are not the government or developers. We are the practitioners. We consult. We are the consultants. We have to suggest the design and the solutions. So when the client or a government comes to us about that this is the need, this is what we are trying to do. So we bring our expertise and any external agencies or the expertise we need. And first job is to figure it out what's the the outcome they want, and then work towards that. So challenge most probably to start with is that what is the end product they want to eventually get. That's where the most of the trajectory keeps bouncing back, because we are not usually sure when it comes to a projects like this or development like this. Then you have long standing challenges in terms of the procedures, the government steps, approvals, and it keeps going for a long period of time. Finances, so justifying the financing, getting the fund. It's a due diligence, it's the step which we have to be part of, and eventually have a patience enough to realize them in a phased manner. So that's what large scale projects which usually happens. So in the case of Pune, for example, the river project we are working on, or the Bhutan, or the Sabarmati here, so these are all 10 to 25-year-old projects, long projects, and it takes step by step, and we keep doing it. So that is the broader
Any
aspect.
particular data like the population, the access to people, what is the footfall, or any particular data which you deal with in the planning these projects?
All of them are necessary, but let's say if you're designing from the scratch when you don't have anything, so then eventually the framework is important, and framework is based on certain need, what end product, and you determine based on the floor space is going to have, for example, how many buildings is going to have, and accordingly you can also determine how much capacity of the streets and the infrastructure will be needed. So that is the first step. So you fix the streets or the framework for the master plan, and then let the city evolve. But if it's already an existing city or some sort, and then based on that you follow all the other aspects in terms of the streets, transportation, infrastructure.
Has it ever happened that your master plan sounds perfect, looks perfect, but the implementation has failed?
Oh, it happens. It happens. If it's not, there are two reasons. One is that, of course, the project is not going forward, and let's say they decided not to do.
So it's on the monetary grounds. You're
Monetary
trying to
grounds
say?
also, and the need part also. Sometimes you do the master plan exercise, you understand that, but then realize along the way that of course they don't have the funds, for example, but then also that it's not needed. So they fall apart. I mean, we as a designer, we make sure that the master plans are designed with enough flexibility. So the time will change, we evolve as a city. So certain master plan we have designed 25 years ago with certain framework in mind. So flexibility is inbuilt. So 25 years is a long time. Technologies change, education systems change, or the city needs changes, for example, depends on what master plan you are talking about. And having that flexibility determines the success of the master plan eventually. But the failure of the master plan is that because master plan drawing in a drawing format is a very simpler, I would say, in a larger sense, but building it takes time. It's dedication, the team who is building it, the government, the management, the policies, budgets, all of them plays important role in that case.
So such kind of projects are mainly, is in clash with the general public, which is already using such kind of spaces. So during the development phase, do you think that such kind of clashes happens between the general public, which is already using those spaces, and when the planners and developers have started doing development and everything? So any kind of clashes have you faced ever?
It depends on what type of development you're saying. For example, if you are thinking about expansion of the cities, or you're doing projects or the areas in the city itself, expansion of the city. So the challenge would be that how people would react in terms when the city is under construction. If you see just now Ahmedabad, peripheral Ahmedabad, a lot of things are under construction, where people are also living around. They are also commuting on day-to-day basis, but then we have traffic issues. The underground infrastructure is being laid, so the roads are also dug up. Construction is going on, so there is always going to be a dust and pollutions and all sorts of stuff. So that's where the conflict starts primarily. But if they are planned well in terms of that some streets are kept for commuting, some streets are kept for construction equipments, for example, and some sort of planning is needed in terms of the traffic, but sometimes we don't do it because nobody is paying attention or responsible for that. So that's where those troubles keeps coming primarily.
Okay, so this what you're talking about are the administrative struggles, I must say, right? But as we talk about the hydrological impact of such projects, like developing the projects like Sabarmati River front, there is a waterbed, right? When you develop such kind of projects, and there is also a very huge hydrological impact of water flowing through it. So how do you take care of it?
See, any large scale projects or where in the context of any water body or a river or a water stream, study of the hydraulics and hydrology is extremely essential. So you start making sure that you have understood that well, where the water is coming, what's the rain look like, when it comes to the flood, what is the size of the flood and the level of the flood. So all of them are mathematical processes which we do with expertise. There are experts who does talk about that and generate the models and the solutions. So we have to understand how the water is coming, what's the rainfall, what's the historical flood, and what's the soil erosion, seepage, evaporation, all sorts of parameters we take care. And when any engineering solution to be devised has to take care of that particular flood is the whole idea. So in the case of Sabarmati, the 100-year flood, 50-year flood, frequent floods, all of them are studied, and there are computer models which you generate, which gives you the parameters and the solution. For example, Ahmedabad needed certain size of the embankment, which can take care of the flood which keeps coming in the river. So then the city is protected primarily. So it's like when you're designing a building, when the structure becomes an essential part to stabilize the building, it is like this. The hydrology and hydraulics process gives you a clue how you want to solve the problem.
I would like to ask one question from my personal experience, which I faced in one building right now into Science City area. If you know, there's a waterbed in the Science City area. So if
Waterbed,
waterbed is high.
Okay.
At the Science
The
City area, the
groundwater
groundwater bed is high at the Science City. So if you dig up to two basements down, like up to 7 meters or 8 meters, there is a water. So is there any particular solution which can be taken care by the builder side? Because I've seen this problem into few projects where they have completed the projects, and then after the monsoon the water has come from the basement.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know, is it a planning failure, or there is something which has been neglected in the planning stage?
Yeah. See, every building or anything you construct which has a foundation, you do the soil testing. So you dig a core and then you figure it out what's the soil strata looks like. And if the soil has a water in it up to certain point, then the structural designer will figure it out the solution accordingly. But if you don't have those studies, and if the structure is designed devoid of that information, then it's bound to happen.
You're trying to say it's a sheer negligence at the planning
Yeah,
stage.
if it's the information is not known, then the people would not take care of that. The structural designer will pay attention on that front. For example, one of the building we've designed where the water has come up to a certain point. So your structure has to be done in a way, maybe the raft has to be thick enough to and have enough waterproofing where it can sustain. Or the pile foundation, for example, the structural type also determines the soil capacity and bearing capacity. So the soil test is absolutely necessary for anything. If you don't take care of that, and if the construction quality is also poor, then water seepage is bound to happen primarily.
So I think the soil test is the important thing
Yes.
when you have to take care of
Yes,
such
it
kind
is
of
extremely
hydrological
important. Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
What factor do you think is mostly ignored when you design the public spaces? The huge level of public development. Do you think what factor is mostly neglected by urban planners and developers?
If it's designed well, put it in ideal, like what is a good practice? The good practice is that you understand the function, I mean the program, what that public space meant for. Is it a park? Is it a street? Is it a place for large gatherings? And if you don't think about the solution where the function is taken care, then it's likely to be failed.
You personally feel that, okay, this project has been designed by another urban developer, I'm not happy with this point of view?
Yeah, I won't point out any particular project, but the point is that first of all, in Indian context, see, we have a reference of public spaces in the foreign countries. We think those European countries has beautiful plazas and the streets and other things, but their whole life, culture, the way they have evolved, and the amount of people they have is different than what we have. We have markets, we have vendors, we have auto rickshaws, and a lot of other activities. We have smaller shops around it. So when you design, of course, we want to make our cities better and more cleaner, relatively, where everybody can function. The problem starts if you don't take care of people, basically. Like if you're designing a street or a public space where there is a vendor, and if you don't accommodate them as a part of the design solution, and they will come back, and it will eventually become a hindrance to what you have designed. So then it's not functional. So success of any such project is determined, of course, not like it's not a building or somebody's house where everything will remain clean and neat. It's people's space, ultimately people's place. So it will have its wear and tear at one point, but how well they are comfortable, whoever is the users, how well it is built in terms of the construction quality and the periodic maintenance. What fails in the public space is that in the beginning we do nice designs, let's say we build, we inaugurate, and we put it in the public, but then we forget about it. If it's not maintained, everything needs a maintenance. Car needs a maintenance, however the fancy your car is, or a house needs a maintenance. So public space needs a maintenance. So failure happens when you don't maintain, you don't govern, you don't manage at most of the time in the public space.
If we take the example of European cities, they're beautifully well maintained public spaces, and you also have the exposure of European cities so far. So can you just compare those things, like, where we are lacking in development or in maintenance of the public spaces in India compared to these European countries?
First of all, we are getting better. I think we have lots of public spaces now which is well maintained. In Ahmedabad itself, you see the Kankaria, when the 20 years ago when it got developed as a public space. Earlier it was chaotic, polluted, dusty, and all the rubbish and everything is lying around. But now it's one of the cleaner public space with the same people who are using it. The psychological impact is now it has some sort of enclosure around, so people are going it, they are keeping it maintained. So corporation is also putting enough manpower to make sure that it get clean, there are enough garbage bins, people use it, and at the end they clean up every single day. This is the pattern in the European plazas or the public streets also. So they get dirty throughout the day because people are people, and but at the end somebody will come and clean up. So next morning it is going to be cleaner public space. And we, as a wherever we have an important project, we are learning and we are doing it. But I think, as you also point out, the civic sense, as we grow as a country and people more travel around the world and see how we live on this particular planet, and slowly they will also figure it out how to keep our public space cleaner. We're the same people who goes to Singapore and won't do anything, won't throw any wrapper or anything outside on the streets. Here we are comfortable doing it because we don't have any adverse effect. Nobody is stopping you. In Singapore there are heavy fines if you do it. So I think bit of moderation, bit of control in some sense, bit of management, and our willingness, our individual willingness to keep our public space cleaner will improve.
So psychologically, you're thinking, like, as an urban planner, that we as a Indian citizens need to more do the we more give the respect to those kind of public spaces which has been opened for us by the government side, and we should do we should take care of it like as our own house, you feel so?
And I think this, if I see the pattern, the psychological, it's already doing the trick when the places are designed well or they are designed robust, they're not confused, for example, and people are comfortable generally, so they will take care of it. So we are not also that bad where we want to deliberately do something in a public space. for example. So if you have walked on the riverfront promenade, for example, we're the same people who live in the societies and the same city, but that place is relatively well maintained also, but also kept clean by people. There will be, it's ultimately a society, so if something is not right, we will manage it. But the environment also creates that psychological effect that, yeah, this is a nice place, let's keep it clean. So how well it is designed, how well it is built, how clear that public space is, people will react to that also, primarily.
So when we call that this public project is successful and this is a failure, keeping aside the political debates about the what the other parties are doing and blaming, we are not talking about that, but we are talking on the very technical side and the practical aspect of it. How do you call some public project is successful and some is fail?
The two aspects I can see. If the public space design has not taken care all the stakeholders, the users primarily, and they don't know how to use that public space, so it will be confusion, so that will happen. And second is, if it's not well made and maintained in terms of the quality of construction, and eventually it will vandalize or gets broken or ill maintained, then people will not use it also. That's not successful example. Good successful examples will be where people enjoy going there and they're also well maintained and clean. These are the primary factors where the success lies.
And what are the reasons that that huge level of the projects gets failed? Like you said, the public are not using it. What are the primary factors that people don't feel like using those spaces into public? If you can quote one of the example which you feel that public project is a failure.
Okay, I don't think we have I can state an example which talks about failure, but
You can talk about any other anything vague you have as a case study in your mind.
let's say Badra Plaza in Ahmedabad, for example, and it's designed with well intention. Probably certain aspects of that old uses, which is the market and the vending and everything, but eventually, because it is problem with this public space, is there are repercussions of that public space. If you want to become successful in that particular area, but the surrounding part is not taken care, let's say in the Badra, the pedestrianization of that plaza, but then the traffic routing and everything has not been taken care, people will continue using this space, and then eventually authority will give up, because then now there are traffic congestions. So any successful of that particular project has a repercussions outside, or the link project outside, which also needs to be done. Otherwise, you eventually, as the time goes, the stress happens and it will dilute the original purpose, and then it goes back to the original state of space. So I mean, in Ahmedabad, those kind of problems are there primarily.
Right.
Yeah.
So intentions of any developer, any planner is always like, to give the most of the comfort and the pleasure of the
Yeah.
public place to the people. But if people fail to, use that properly, adapt that properly, then we can say that it is a failure.
Yes. Failure of the public space is always, you will know if the people are using it well or not. And I think that comes to us finally, because it's a public space.
True. The large projects like metro rails, I have seen there is a lots of delay because the conversation and the planning starts 10 years 15 years back into Ahmedabad, and it is now shaping up. So considering that in large infrastructure projects, what percentage of delays come from technical issues versus administrative hurdles?
We have enough technical expertise, I think, as a country. We have good people, good consultants, good designers overall. Project like metro or any large scale infrastructure project, usually technical delays are not much. I would say 30-35% overall. But because all this large scale project has a lot of impact on the finances, the procedural aspects, the approval aspects, political change probably, and this whole step by step aspects of the governance, so that takes up a lot of time. So give an example of our experience, the Sabarmati riverfront, where initially designing a master plan and doing a technical one report was not much, but then eventually working on the environmental, land, hydrology, hydraulics, getting the approval, budgetary provisions, getting a loan, helping the client to do all of that took a lot of time primarily. So technical delays, not much. The procedurals are more primarily. And the technical delays comes if in the technical design, I mean technical stage, if the ground realities are not taken care, in terms of metro, for example, where the acquisition of some land or properties where the metro is running is not taken, or it was considered, but that process just took a lot of time. So processes takes time. Then the technical.
So major is the administrative issues.
Administrative issues.
Technical delays
and then the
are
planning
less.
phase. Yeah, construction is construction stage. Building a metro or large scale infrastructure projects does take a certain time.
This might have happened that you have one approved design, but when you start developing those kind of projects, you need to redesign it, right? So why this kind of redesigning or the redevelopment or the reconsideration comes into the project when you actually start working on one plan, and then you know that okay, this is not working and I have to now like adapt the another thing.
There are two aspects of any change needed. One, if the brief changed, the program changed, for example. When you start something, but then eventually client or anybody realizes that this is not what we want and we want to revise it. So that revision comes, maybe later stage, based on our experience. The second is sometimes in the public project, we rush to do fast tendering, for example, or we rush to start the execution without giving enough thought prior. Now, it's not a fault of a consultant or a client, it's just the overall situation we have in the country just now, where anything you want to do now, today. So we rush, and once you rush, and then when the project starts in a developing stage, and then you realize that you have not taken care of this because there was not enough time, that leads to the changes and revisions as we go along.
So there are certain kind of quality control process you are saying that you take care once you are doing the planning of such kind of projects.
Yeah, there are ample quality aspect. We have set standards, we have set procedures, depends on what kind of project you are doing. If it's a heavy complex building like your experience also, CCS for example in Delhi, which has numerous approval needed. Some of them are compliances as a quality check, some of them are also verifications of structures, climate aspects, or the fire aspects, and all of that. So there are also important stages where somebody is evaluating it, and if there are changes needed, also commenting it, and we have to revise it also. So that is necessary. Yes, there will be some the checkbox type of approvals, which is probably done as a obligation or as a procedure in our systems, because they are redundant, but because it's there, we have to do it. So that might be situations like that also.
So you think that the safety audits in large projects are genuinely rigorous or just procedural?
Safety audits in terms of what?
Safety in
The
terms of
design stage?
fire, in terms of a real quality control process, and when you take the quality control in the safety aspects, right, in the fire, again the hydrological bed, the fire, the retention of the project and the life of the structure, everything I'm talking about. They are generally like the rigorous project you take care.
Yeah, they're
Or
rigor.
just the procedural
No, they are
things.
rigor. They are rigor. It is serious. It is necessary. So when it comes to building, let's say the building design needs a lot of these aspects, where when certain regulations are done without any common sense, then it becomes burden. But if they are technically essential, because you want to protect ultimately people when it comes to fire, so the fire evacuation, number of staircases, how the sprinklers and everything is put together, they are all needed. I think that's something which is needed. The problem starts where you don't adapt why the regulations as the city, as a country, as a standard changes, and we still have outdated laws, for example, on that front. But most of them, they progress, and they're mandatory. so up to certain point, and they are not simply checkbox type of. So hydrology, hydraulics are essential. If you don't do it, and if you don't understand, if you build something wrong, and then you have to redo few things, and it can create an adverse effect to the whole projects or the area. So this kind of things are overall, as a nutshell, are extremely important checks and verifications needed for that, because they're all backed by the technical data. They're not somebody's whim primarily. So it is absolutely necessary.
So we are actually, as Indians, are very fascinated by the European countries and America and all, and we see the structures over there, right? They are beautifully made. They are very attractive for us. But considering those kind of large structures and buildings, the atmosphere impact is a very big thing when we think of the building material, right? So because the climate there is very different, the climate here in India is very different. So I would like to know that what is the aspect of a building material and what kind of building material are used into Indian project versus the foreign projects, which we see as a symbol of the beautiful architecture.
Yeah. Yeah, we borrow a lot of things. This flashy thing, as a country, we like, because we travel around the Europe and Singapore and China and everywhere, and we see a lot of flashy buildings, and we get attracted. So how we copy the fashion, it's not only the buildings. I think we copy everything in the
We
fashion.
copy the fashion is interesting
is
statement.
the fashion is a fashion. So it's being at the clothes, cars, or technologies, and we like the foreign, because that's how our psychology is, for example. But I would say Indian architecture, long rooted history of making buildings and the large cities, are climatically adapted. If you go to north of India, Himalayas, you have a certain typology of buildings and the material. Go to south, it will have sloping roofs and built by the stones. West, mud, and few other things in Rajasthan. So all of them are traditionally built with certain material, first of all available in the region. So they are in a way sustainable because they are available. They are not transported from somewhere else in a regular context. But that's for the domestic, or I would say a smaller scale community and other aspects. We as a country now, we are modernizing it. We have bigger buildings, we have bigger facilities, and those facilities needs different kinds of material composition, and there are a lot of things going on. So you cannot use mud or wood, or up to certain point only the load bearing structures for a mega project. So then the modern standard comes in the picture.
So in Gujarat right now, I see like in the last 5 to 10 years, we are so much fascinated by facades.
Yeah.
The big facades buildings are coming. So how suitable are facades for Indian weather condition?
No, our experience says that facades, first of all, no, now you said foreign buildings, the glass has come.
Glass.
So, but the glass was there anyway. I mean, we did use glass. If you go to 50 or 60-year-old building, if you go to CEPT University or something, wherever there is a light needed, you will need a glass, or you have a glass door or something. Now we have technologies where the climate control, double glazing, triple glazing windows, and they're available. Yes, glass gives you a different space inside. There's a closed room just now, but if you have one window which is open with a view outside, that is a different architectural vocabulary. But then all of that needs some sort of shading device, because we have a harsh sun. It has to be technically designed. So then depends on the day of your day, during the sun locations throughout the day, that shading device helps you protect the inner space and doesn't reflect the heat outside primarily. So using a material is not an issue here. How well we use it to the context is where the thinking is needed. So you will start seeing a lot of facades which has louvers outside or a shading device. And if they are done well, that's the solution, I would say. So you can use the glass, you can have a full view of the outside world and get enough light in a non-sun days, but they are shaded, they're well constructed. So then building also becomes better, and that's the modern standard, I would say.
So I have a one fancy word with me, which is called urban heat island effect. So what is that? I would like to know, because as a layman, I have heard this word, just
Yeah.
by researching about you.
Yeah. For example, you have a street outside just now, outside this building. This building has a glass facade. The street doesn't have any trees now, and it's asphalt, and there are pavers, and the building has a glass. There are no trees. Like imagine in a day where the sun is harsh, and so constantly the floor is going to be heated, and then the facades are going to reflect the sunlight again to the floor. So buildings are going to be hot from outside. So there are no trees for the shading or absorbing absorb the heat. There are no water streams or anything. And then what happens that creates a local heat when it all of this combines and radiates the heat within the space. So it creates an island of a certain temperature. So for example, here maybe outside currently it might be 40 degree on the streets if you measure it, but maybe a half a kilometer inside the city where the residential street would be there with two side of the trees, and there are bungalows where the glass is not there, temperature might drop to 35 in that region. So these are the heat islands which city has. So overall Ahmedabad might have 35 degree or 30 degree, but when you go a certain streets or areas, you might feel the temperature different.
So what are the designs you use to reduce this kind of effects?
If I give you the same example, and if it's a well designed, first of all, your the glass will have some sort of shading device, which is going to benefit the building inside, but also won't reflect the heat outside, primarily in the space. The streets will have trees. Imagine a large tree with the shaded areas. If you go to Bangalore or Delhi, the streets have beautiful large trees which has grown, and it creates the heat doesn't transfer on the ground level. So above the tree there'll be different temperature, below the tree there'll be different temperature primarily. So if these two things are done well, lots of trees and some sort of non-reflective facades of the buildings in a commercial areas like this will reduce the temperature drastically.
So you are saying this is procedure of designing a green building or a green belt? It's a part of it, or it's a different thing?
No, green building is a different aspect which will come later, but the public infrastructure, streets are primarily, of course, you want to commute, so it's a mobility also, but mobility not only for the cars but for the people also. So if I park my car somewhere or get down from a bus, I should be able to walk to reach to a certain destination, few hundred meters. And that walking should be pleasant enough, even in the hot climate like Ahmedabad, if you have enough trees. Having enough trees and some minimum walkway in the safer walkway on the street gives you the benefit of it. The building standard is not a green building. Green building is a completely different way of seeing it, but the good architecture which helps you not overpower the public space outside and doesn't create that heat effect. Now remember that building in London, if you have noticed, you should talk about it. It's called walkie-talkie because it's the shape of the walkie-talkie, like a phone. And some 20 years ago, they've designed it with the curvature glass, and it reflects because of the convex, the curvature, the sun directly comes and concentrates the heat. So it's not like just a reflection, but it's a concentrated heat. And they've actually melted the cars or the tires outside in the building. So then eventually they have to put some sort of shading device on the type so it doesn't reflect it. So in Ahmedabad also we have many buildings when you have depends on the sun direction. If directly comes to the point where the heat transfers. So building bylaws should help. If you have a good building bylaws which can determine how the building should react to the outside world, public space. So there are many factors. It's not only government's responsibility only that tree needs to be planted. Yes, it is necessary, but the city also should take care, the private developer also should take care that the buildings are not hampering the public space. You may design a well building for the owner or the users of your campuses, but then if it has an adverse effect to the outside world, then it's not a good
So if we design
space.
this kind of sustainable buildings, I must say, or sustainable spaces, are they really cost driven or just a certificate driven?
They are both.
Okay.
This green building certification particularly thing is because we wanted the some global standard, so then people think that our buildings are green buildings primarily. So we started doing that certification process in our, and we get the rating 5 gold standard, that standard and all of things. Because in the rush of getting the certificate, you do certain things which may cost you, but in the reality they are not green buildings. In reality it is not. It may be on certificate, but in functioning it probably not. Our traditional buildings or the architecture projects in 60s or 70s where you have campuses or buildings design which has good light ventilation, robust material, basic construction process, use of exposed brick, exposed concrete, natural stones at the flooring, normal door windows, open during the day for the light and ventilation, sun orientation, wind direction, is ultimately also a pleasant and important building, and you can say green building. You don't need the fancy technology to prove that it is a green building
So we
primarily.
need to take care of the practical aspects as well,
Yeah,
because
we
most of
should.
the green buildings which I have seen, which has got the certifications,
Yeah, they're
are really
expensive.
into chaotic space after
They're
the usage
chaotic,
of 2-3
chaotic,
years.
and they are also very expensive in the beginning. Most of the thing is done because they want to comply to certain standards. But those standards are not Indian; they're foreign's. So
True
we
that.
don't know if those standards are actually supposed to be applicable. It's like you're teaching a kid on some American course in an Indian context where that person has no idea what is happening. So it is like that. I think it's a mismatch of some foreign standard which we have simply adapted, and nobody paid attention how Indian context should react to that or translate. Particularly, I would say it should be translated, thoughtfully translated into Indian context. That has not happened. So we are in the rush of ticking the box, getting the certificate, and feeling happy about it.
So I feel like the practical aspects after the execution has not been taken care well in those kind of buildings
Yes.
while designing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's why it's into chaotic space right now. But considering that, I would like to ask you one more question about the difference between architecture and the structure designs, right? I want to know that where the role of an architect ends and where the structure design begins. Because that goes hand to hand,
Yes.
right? Architecture and structure design, both
Yeah.
things.
Good practices. Like what we do is architects and structure designer work together. So they're not
True. Different.
step by step process that we have designed something, now the structure has to design fix it, or the structure is designed, now we have to do the architecture. No, it's always it's a coordinated effort. Not only the structure, I would say all the services, fire safety, the climate aspects, all of them are all coordinated effort. A good practice, good building design will give you a good structure which is going to be safe in a particular environment. We have earthquake zones, we have certain soil capacity, the water seepage aspects which you mentioned. So all of them are important, and the structural engineer will think about all of that. But if you work together with the structural engineer and have enough communication from the architect's design need, and if the solutions are done, and the elegant projects can be done. You see, Parliament, for example,
Right.
is a extremely complex building in terms of the functions, that solving that function of a program of the building is extremely important. But unless the architect has a certain knowledge of structure and have a constant dialogue with the structural engineer from the day one, you will not be able to resolve that building at all.
So when I have seen in my experience as well, when the architects are designing certain kind of projects, more weightage is given to aesthetics and like how the project will look like from outside. Structure designing is mainly on the practical side of the aspects, that how sturdy the structure can be. So when there is a conflict between a structure design and the architectural aesthetics, Like what is the final say? Who is at the final decision making of this kind of conflicts?
It depends on what kind of buildings you are talking. But if the structure is safe and it's standing, then, and if it's, and the architects are only doing the facades or as a decoration, then there is no real actually connection. It's just a skin on the structure primarily. But that's not a good practice. The real building will give you a homogeneous, I would say, a product which doesn't determine the structure as a separate entity, and the architecture is a separate entity.
The structure doesn't give more attention to aesthetics.
Not necessary.
Okay.
They do.
They do?
If you keep the process integrated from the day one, there are around the world there are beautiful buildings which are structure oriented, but they're well designed buildings, and the structure is the primary aspect which comes. For example, Sydney Opera House. You might have seen it,
Yes.
or
Burj Khalifa,
Burj
Burj Al
Khalifa,
Arab.
or I know if you know the person named Calatrava, Santiago Calatrava in Spain, who does buildings which are structurally powerful, and because they have enough dialogue, the structural engineer is bold enough to solve. They're not standard beam columns. They're completely done in a certain manner that they're well integrated. So design and the structure is actually one. There is no segregation behind that. So when you design a good building, the structure designer also, if it is a good structural designer, he will understand the design parameters and design aspects, and he will respect the architect's need to cover the certain aspects of the aesthetics and the design as a part of the structure. And architects would understand that safety is needed, there are certain structural element which is needed, and how well they integrate and gel is the, so marriage between that design and the structure
Is important.
All the structural successful buildings, all the elegant buildings which you like are done in that fashion. There is no segregation.
Okay, we take care of the architectural aesthetics, we take care of the strength of the structure. After that, after solving that thing, again the thing comes to budget, the cost effectiveness, and the cost of that building, and cost optimization.
Yeah.
So how do you take care of that thing? Because if there is no budget, definitely whatever the good architectural you propose, whatever the good structure design you propose, it is not going to be into shape, right?
Yeah, of course. So the financial aspects is extremely important. So the sensitive architect will make sure that, first of all, you cannot simply decide the budget, say, okay, this is the number, but this is the number, but this is the program. So if they are not aligned, then either you make a smaller building or you have to increase the budget, for example. But you should not compromise the quality of it. So that's where the trouble is.
Sometimes it has happened that you have done a beautiful structure design, and sometimes you have done beautiful architectural aesthetics as well, but the budget has not been taken care of in that kind of project. Or maybe when you finally do the cost optimization, it has gone way beyond the budget which has been proposed initially.
No, but then you have to optimize it. So you have to figure it out. If something is redundant in your, or you do value engineering aspects of that, or you figure it out how, if the certain materials are used which is a cost heavy, so you have to reduce it or change the material, for example. So I think we have done it in certain fashions where initial idea we understood, okay, this project has to look like this, but then if there are constraints on the budgetary, we change the specification and material in the design intent. We don't compromise on the cheaper material or a cheaper solution. It's an alternative solution or a material which will give you the same design intent but lesser cost. So the cost is, in the architecture business or in any infrastructure business, cost plays an important role up to certain point. Beyond that, you should not if it's compromising the quality of a product, then it is not, rather you should not do it, or you have to figure it out how to actually get a more funding or money out of it. Otherwise, you have to change the program. You have to make a smaller building to accommodate the budget, for example. So it's ultimately collective responsibility. But if architects are given a job to design in certain budget, then if the budget is known from the beginning, then you should find a way to do it. Infrastructure, large scale projects doesn't come in that fashion because nobody knows the budget. So you have to come up to a solution and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost like. But then they will ask you, okay, can you change, can you do a value engineering and figure it out to reduce by 10-15%? So yeah, that's possible given the parameters and the design intent remains the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So, considering that questions of keeping all the aspects together, I think BIM in 4D, building information modeling in 4D, where you take care of the the expenses as well, is actually widely popular into international countries. So, what do you think? What is the role of AI, BIM, and simulation is there into designing a project right now?
Or now, very much. I think as we are in the time now, the technology is helping us become more efficient. Efficient in terms of the way we take decisions and how efficient the building is. So the BIM we use is extremely helping us to figure it out the right quantity of the material which we are using in the building. So there is no usually what happens that an engineer will sit and determine the quantity of a concrete, for example, or a steel, and they will always keep 10-20% extra because they don't know the real quantity of it because they've just used it. BIM gives accuracy. Now there is a 100% accurate information based on the BIM model and will give you accuracy of any material quantity aspect or clashes and everything. So there is a all predictability or uncertainty which you have while the project is going on, which is all solved using the technology BIM digitally. So you get the right quantity, you understand that there is no clashes, so there is no repercussion of the cost and the time in the future. Everything is solved digitally, so like a digital twin, and that is helping a lot. And the AI is, yeah, it's a beginning, but AI helps you automate many things, the processes which we use it. So all of them is ultimately it's all efficiency. The technology is meant for efficiency. If it's burden, then it's not a technology. It's just a checkbox, and you're procedural, and you're following the procedure to waste time. Technology has to help you take decisions faster and more accurate, and it's a rational process where everybody understands the same thing, not independent mind.
So in urban planning, the simulation tools are very important. I
Yes.
feel like when you plan the project and everything. So for the viewer's point of view, I want you to explain what is the difference between BIM, building information modeling, and simulation tool which is used.
So BIM is when you design a building, which is before you construct on the ground, is digitally built. So in every aspect. So it's building information modeling, which ultimately gives you the building the way it is. So it has structure, all the piping, all the finishes, all the furniture, all the vehicle movement, all of them are water supply, drainage, everything is integrated. So you exactly know how your building is going to go in the making primarily. So that's BIM in this case. Simulation is there are softwares who simulate the effect what you have imagined. For example, the structure design, as you mentioned, if it's a building is designed with certain structure, the structure software will stimulate if there is an earthquake. So it's an impact. It is not a reality, but it's a simulation in a scenario if it happens. Or let's say in the infrastructure project like a flood, I mean the riverfront projects. So you simulate the flood and tells you if it's going to overflow or not. So simulation is to see how it is going to impact if something happens, the event happens. So you simulate it. You don't build that, you simulate it. Yeah, BIM is something which you built digitally and eventually going to make the reality. So that is the difference primarily between simulation.
So I must say that if BIM and simulation procedures are not been taken care in planning the project, there may be some errors when the project finally shapes up, right?
There will
In the
be
part
errors.
of execution as well.
Yes.
Right. So do you think, is there any current building or the planning which has been outdated today? You feel that
Building regulation, you mean?
building or planning is mostly outdated.
How the buildings are made, for example. So if you have, our current issue with Ahmedabad is you have certain setbacks or the margin which you normally keep between the plot from the streets and everything. So that is something I think as a city we are overly done, and it's actually diluting the purpose of good city. Other factor which I see even in this building I saw is we have this common open space. Bylaws will tell you the 10% green space you have to put it, and all of them are actually in reality is not, people are not doing it. On paper it might be, but in reality it's not, and also not helping making good buildings.
So any building regulation you feel is outdated?
Yeah, so building
the
regulations, these are building regulations are outdated.
Right.
Primarily.
One building regulation I would like to put in light that when we planned the fully automated mechanical car parking, the human entry is not there into fully automated mechanical car parking. It's very automated. Now in that scenario, you don't need the ramp.
Precisely.
But, yes, but the regulation says
that.
that you need to have a ramp, which is taking most of your spaces in designing
Yeah.
the mechanical car parking. So I feel that is outdated.
No, there are many. I'm just saying one or two, but no, for in the ramp itself also. If you see just now, the first of all, building is placed in a particular land and open from all four sides. The ramp is kept in that margin space. So now that margin space is gone in the ramp, so it's not used. Let's say if it's not a mechanical parking, it's a regular parking where the car, the human has to go, driver has to go with it. What if that ramp is inside the building itself? So you don't first of all waste the land. And what if that land outside is used differently? Currently what we have is only the shop front, I mean the front of the road, of the front of the building has a shop, and that's only active. All the sides and the backs are dead primarily. So margins, ramps, open spaces, they are all outdated. And if you want to progress further, we need to re-evaluate these aspects of the building regulations.
So if you have to redesign a city or design a city from a scratch, what are the 3 parameters which will be, changing and putting across while designing the city from a scratch?
Designing a city from the scratch where you have no idea what that city is going to be, because city is eventually built by economic factors, people, real estate development, and market forces. So a good city is successful if you have a good framework or a structure, I mean as a master plan, where you fix the structure in terms of street network, so it's a public realm. If it's a residential neighborhood, and then the gardens, I would say, so public space with the garden inside as a dedicated space, and some notional aspects where probably some public transport might be necessary, depends on the land use eventually. And another factor we always forget is the natural resources in terms of rivers, lakes, and others, and how to protect them primarily. Master plan should only do this: have a framework where city will figure it out how to do the development, and it all depends on the market forces, but then also having a good regulation attached to it. So it's a simple framework, not determine what the land use should be, that you should not think about this has to be commercial, this has to be residential, this has to be education. Not, you cannot do that, because now all of them are all market driven aspects of that. And you have a well defined public master plan framework, then there is a chance that city will be a good city eventually.
So what is your technical diagnosis about, the India's urban infrastructure crisis right now?
Urban infrastructure crisis.
Yes.
Yeah,
There are many crises.
We do have crisis. We are building a lot of infrastructure, first of all. So the crisis is not that we are not building it. So we are building many highways and rails and metros, and we are upgrading the rails, streets, flyovers, lakes, everything. So there is a constant infrastructure happening. The problem is, and we don't have a problem with the money also now, because we have enough somehow money where we are investing. The problem is all fragmented. There is no one city is not coordinated what the streets and other things are going. As a state, we are not coordinated what is needed for the state. As a country, we are also kind of project to project we are building. So we want to build bullet trains, so we only talk about bullet trains. But what that bullet train will impact the surroundings, how the station will be placed, what will happen around the stations. So it's a fragmented planning. Country is a big thing, but even if one city like Ahmedabad, if you have some sort of comprehensive bit of vision or a master plan, some sort of master plan and that master plan is taken as a reference and the building on, and they're stuck with it. I mean, they keep following it rather than keep changing it. They're not should be project to project. We are project driven people somehow, and the infrastructure is built project to project. There is no system about it. So fragmented planning, I would say, in the infrastructure realm is causing a lot of stress in our cities primarily.
Okay, so we have a last segment, Niki, with us, which is a rapid fire, which is always a surprise to guests.
Oh yes, it is.
Right? So you don't have much time to think about answering my questions right now.
Yeah.
You have just quickly have to say whatever comes in
Sure.
your mind in my rapid fire questions. Right? So my first question is, are we building cities or just selling square feet?
We're just selling square feet.
Who really decides a city's future? Planner, politicians, or prophets?
Politicians for now.
Okay. Are modern townships solving the problems or just hiding them behind the gates?
Or they are hiding behind the gates.
One brutal truth about the real estate developers people should know.
Artificial scarcity.
Are Indian cities planned or just reacting to chaos?
We are reacting to chaos in most of the cases.
If parking is a daily problem, is it a design failure?
Management failure.
Do architects sometimes know a project is wrong but still have to build it?
Yes.
What's something buyers admire in a project that architects secretly dislike?
Or difficult. But how many car space I have in the house, for example, if I just think of.
Okay. So are we designing the communities for humans or for the Instagram photos just?
No, I think in reality we are building for people, yes. The Instagram is just a phase. Yeah.
Okay. So what part of urban development is the most misunderstood by the public?
That building infrastructure is a time consuming thing and we don't have the patience. So we think that while we are building it, we are creating a chaos. So that chaos feels like it's a design fault. It's a temporary thing primarily. And we don't have enough, I think, awareness, or we're not made aware to other people also that this is a temporary thing and you have to wait for a good thing to come up. That's where the most of the apprehensions or the chaos happens.
Okay. If you could expose the one reality of infrastructure industry, what it would be?
I would say the sequence of construction. I think that's something where you are building a road and then you're digging again for the pipeline. So it's multi-level, but I think that's something which is known or seen.
And why do so many planned communities still feel unplanned?
Because they're isolated, right? Because their planned communities are in the isolated islands in that sense, because they don't fit well in a larger community, because they're still independent campuses. That's why it doesn't feel like that it's cohesive. Maybe inside, okay, as soon as you come outside, there's no impact. Those planned communities has no impact to the larger neighborhood or city. That's why it feels not coherent primarily.
Thank you, Mr. Niki Shah. That was my 1 hour with you, and we had a really very good, insightful knowledge about architectural urban planning point of view. I think my viewers will be so much benefited by your knowledge which you have given. We thank you on behalf of all my viewers for coming and taking time for us and giving this interview and telling us about the large level of city planning and the projects right now happening. So thank you so much. I would like to conclude this session here with you.
Thanks.
And
Cyril.
in future also we would love to have some conversation conversations with you on the technical aspects of bigger
Definitely.
projects in
Yeah.
future as well.
Definitely.
Thank you
Sure.
so much.
Thank